Hello, I'm Krista McAllister, and welcome to Cerius Leadership. Whether you are growing your business, growing your career, or possibly both, thank you for listening. Today, I am excited to welcome Trish Hodge, who is I want to just say the fabulous Tish Hodge,
Oh, you're so
because I don't think
sweet.
there's any word that I could use other than fabulous.
You're so
You've been your
sweet.
chief people and culture officer. You're part of the Forbes HR Council, just a dynamic leader who's passionate about transforming workplace culture. And you look at that word transformation, it used
Hmm.
to be a buzzword, and now it seems like it should just be in every job title out there.
I agree.
We've seen a lot of shifts the last couple of years, and I think probably one of the more dramatic ones that we've seen in HR is this talent-driven workforce where the employees' needs and wants have really come to the forefront.
Hmm.
Tish, how have you seen the role of human resources evolve to align with this?
Thank you so much for having me. I am excited, ignited, and delighted to be here with you. Thank you so much for your kind words. I blame it on my mom for putting me in pageants at the age of 7. Why it's stuck. It's stuck. To answer your question, it is now, we are living in the world of artificial intelligence, right? Technology has just went into a different stratosphere. We have, and just because we have AI is not going to replace the jobs. It's not going to replace the jobs. We have to tell AI what to do. And so we've had a pandemic that we've come out of, so there's so many more jobs available. There's work in person, there's hybrid jobs, there are remote jobs, there are jobs on top of jobs where there's a little bit of a gap. So the talent, the candidates can pick and choose. They can start a job. It may not be what they want. They can go with the plan B and they are doing well. So as a result of that, human resources needs to get very strategic, very intentional when it comes to scouting, recruiting, and more importantly, the R that I love, retaining their
Mhm.
talent. And so whether that's having 30, 60, 90 instead of just a 90-day review, after the 30-day, after the 60-day, after the 90-day, having stay interviews, right? For those who have been there past the year or so, making sure that there's a people and culture committee so that we're keeping it fresh. It's kind of like a marriage. I like to use that analogy oftentimes. It's really sweet during the honeymoon, but after a couple years, people are growing, some are growing together,
Mhm.
some are growing apart. And so we don't know what we need to change if we don't have those necessary conversations. So HR has just, even now, people are going on retreats and the company picnics. They're bringing back some of the stuff that they stopped doing during the pandemic. So HR are all the things, making sure that we are using AI to our advantage with the job descriptions, just making sure that we're staying ahead of the curve to make sure that we're providing that rewarding experience so that the Gen Zs can stay with us and those who are with us will continue to have that long career and not want to change.
It was interesting. You just mentioned in there that yes, people grow and change,
Hmm.
companies grow and change,
Hmm.
and we've seen more investment than ever before on
Hmm.
growing and developing employees,
Yes,
reskilling them, upskilling them. You just also mentioned, wait, the company needs to stay in tune with its workforce, with its employees,
absolutely.
and it needs to
Absolutely.
evolve to align with them as well. You've
Yes.
got to tell me more about that because we've always heard that the employees need to align and evolve to what the company needs.
So I I don't like scripts, but I wanted to make sure because I know this podcast is so juicy and delicious that I have some stats. So there is, according to McKinsey, only around 26% of leaders create a psychologically safe environment. That is less than 50%. right?
Yeah.
And so organizations that have the high retention, it's because they engage their workers by 76%. They have the conversations. They have the winning workplace Wednesdays. They're rubbing shoulders. They're having their sandwich with the team, finding out what's going on, right? They have the open door policy. They empower their people to make a suggestion. I got to shout out Hilton Worldwide. When I worked at PM Hotel Group, but specifically with BF Soul Hospitality, I was blown away at Hilton Worldwide paying a housekeeper to go, paying her for a sabbatical to go to the Dominican Republic to serve her community with the Global Soap Project. If employers are not keeping up with the Joneses, they're going to end up like Radio Shack, Circuit City, Redbox, Kmart. They're going to be left behind. They have to constantly reinvent themselves as a human resources department. We're no longer personnel. Whenever have we said, these are my humans? Nobody says that. We say, these are our people, right? So we have to continually evolve from personnel, transactional, you know, pay. The pay has been updated this year to more sophisticated using AI. Some people may be scared of it, but we have to use it. We have to get in there because if we don't, we're going to be left behind.
And some of that you had just mentioned, keeping up with the Joneses. We can't all be Hiltons. There's a lot of small to
Of
mid-sized
course.
businesses out there that are really struggling with that. What does a rewards or benefits program look like? What's that next
Mhm,
evolution? What
mhm,
matters
mhm,
to the workforce right now, or the workforce that's in our company, so that we can not just attract them,
mhm,
but we
mhm.
can retain them? Because I, that's sometimes the basis of the culture. When you look
Yes,
at a company that's giving
yes.
1 week vacation versus 6, when you look at
Mhm,
someone who doesn't tuition reimbursement or has a really complete total
mhm.
rewards, it has that psychological state, that I
Yes,
belong here. This is a place where they
yes,
value me.
yes, yes,
What are you
yes.
seeing with those total rewards programs?
So, man, there's so many. I mean, especially when it comes to reproductive benefits, there's so many things that's
Oh,
happening
yes.
now in 2024, 2025 that did not happen in 1985. Ladies freezing eggs, like having that as a benefit, like I said, just making sure that the HR professional is staying up to date with what's being offered. But I want to go back to the beginning of your question. So right now, I'm supporting a school with about 100, a little over 100 employees, and so again, everybody can't be Hilton. But what really matters, what really truly matters to the people, is that they have a voice. Not everybody wants to go back to a country and serve and be philanthropical. But if they have a child that they need to get on the bus, perhaps they can come in a little later and stay a little later. Or perhaps we can give a discount on a lunch or provide, invest in a professional development online, whether it's PeopleSoft or LinkedIn, for them to continue keeping themselves up to date with continuous improvement. So it doesn't have to be millions of dollars. It's the heart and meeting the human needs in addition to the business needs. So for those mom and pop organizations that don't have the wealthy budgets
Yes.
for total rewards, they can still take the quality time to work with their broker, to talk with their people, whether it's their people and culture committee or their total rewards committee, or just having a lunch. I thank you appreciation, just open up the floor to hear from the people so that they can check off some of the low hanging fruit. Sure, you want to do jeans on a Friday? That's easy. That's not going to cost anything. We've made it through another week. Let's finish strong. So there's so many different ways that we can approach making sure, no matter the size of the organization, that they are providing that voice, that empathy. I just came back from a conference in Dubai, and one young lady, we called her the Queen of Empathy. She was tasked to eliminate and have a divestiture eliminate an location. And that location used to be one of the top performing locations. But again, they ran into some of the leadership that was not the most pleasant. And after she asked for 90 days, they decided not to close that facility. And it was because of her heart of empathy. People will do, because it was going to be a sabotage. People are going to be like, she's coming to fire me. We're not going to be here. Why am I going to do this? But because she asked the questions, she gave them a listening ear. She actively listened. She implemented what she could. They saw her heart and her willingness for the change. And now that organization is still with that location today. So just having an HR person that's willing, I've seen I've seen it all. I've seen those that go above and beyond, and I personally, believe it or not, I personally went to a competitor and was trying to speak with the HR director who was on the telephone. And I get it, we're all busy. And the general manager came by and he said hi, and I said, yes, I was waiting. After about 25 minutes, the general manager left from loss prevention and came back and asked that HR director to please come speak with me, because I was waiting for almost a half an hour. So it just depends on the value system, right? Do I love what I do? Am I here for the people, or am I here for my selfish salary, right? Making sure that we're looking at all of the things, we're being all that we can be, so that it's a happy medium in the end.
There's a fine balance there. Let's
Mm-hmm,
unpack that a little bit
mm-hmm,
between having that empathetic and wanting to listen and giving a voice. Town hall
mm-hmm,
meetings, we
mm-hmm,
sometimes tend to shy away from that because we're
mm-hmm,
seeing a such a diverse workforce. You had
mm-hmm,
mentioned a trip to the Dominican Republic,
mm-hmm,
leave for reproduction. You've
mm-hmm,
got needing to put a child on the bus versus a
mm-hmm,
discounted lunch.
mm-hmm.
That's a quite the varying degree of items
Yes,
out there. And
yes.
certainly when we ask and we listen, we tend to hear a almost like an a la carte buffet of each person seems to want something a little different.
Correct.
How do you balance?
Hmm.
I'm always going to take that
I
what
love
would a
it.
business owner say to me,
Bring
or an
it
executive
on.
say to me, how do we balance, especially with the rest of the leadership team who's
Hmm.
got numbers to hit, sales to get
Hmm.
out, things to
Hmm.
get done. They're getting pressure from all to be able
Hmm.
to stop and listen and know what questions to ask because it's
Hmm.
not all on the HR, it's
Correct.
on the leadership. That's a
Correct.
tough thing to balance, especially when there's a lot of pressure and the wind is at your front, not at your back.
Hmm. So I am trusting and hoping that HR is a part of the C-suite, and HR is a part of that leadership, and HR understands the goals and objectives for the year to include the fiscal numbers that need to be hit. And so I'm not sure if you saw the SHRM podcast about a month ago. They pretty much had a similar conversation. And the young lady asked the same question that you're asking me, saying, hey, the workers want more, which is going to be a cost, and the leadership is trying to cut costs because they're trying to maintain and sustain. What do you do? And the answer pretty much remained the same in terms of transparency and communication. If we are in a marriage and I want to go to Maldives, but the budget only has us going to Miami, okay, we can do a $300 ticket each and get to Miami. But what is the ultimate underlying goal? Is it not only the money and the budget for the trip, but is it quality time with the person that I love? So base, irregardless of budget, the 100-person employer to the 10,000 employer, making those avenues, whether it's pulse survey, shout out to Culture Amp, right? Just to see how the team is doing, having that winning workplace Wednesday or whatever day you decide to do it, where leadership just shoot the breeze with the team to hear how things are going, or just regular traditional annual surveys and having action plans for those, having the report out. We've heard you. We know that you want to go to Maldives. It's not going to happen this year in 2025. What we can do is try to, put a 3-year plan together so that we can get there. The people are reasonable. They just want to have a voice to share their desires. They want to understand that you heard them and what is the plan, even if it's a no. Help me to understand why it's a no. And now that I understand that it's a no, it's okay because I have a leadership team that values me. They value my voice. They know what I want. And I too understand that right now we need to we need to replace the roofs. I understand that we need to get certain things up to code as we're having an inspection coming so that I can't go to Maldives right now. We're going to Miami, but you still love me and we're still going to make it work.
You just circled back to what you had mentioned earlier, and I love
Mhm.
it, which is the uh, not being heard. When you're being heard, you feel like you've got that psychological safety, and you
Yes.
went from
Yes.
psychological safety to the employee engagement stats, which
Mm.
is 100%. I think Gallup's latest was 36% of employees are engaged. That not only is that
Exactly.
less than half, that's barely more than a third.
Exactly.
And that engagement is you feel like you're somewhere where you belong.
Hmm.
You feel supported in
Yes.
what you're doing. Part of
Yes.
that is I feel heard. I am
Hmm.
engaged in a
Yes.
two-way conversation. I always say
Conversation. Yeah,
one-way communication is dictation,
it
two-way
is.
is engagement.
Absolutely. Absolutely love it.
How are some ways that you've worked with companies? Because that communication piece, I think
Hmm.
most want to
Hmm.
have that, most want to be able to ask the question,
Hmm.
but we struggle with how to communicate it, how to create that feedback loop, how to create that
Hmm.
two-way and not have it be us versus them or
Hmm.
not aligned with the culture or turn into something that's not safe.
That's where culture is everything. It's everything. It is the how. Culture is the atmosphere. Culture, you can hear it on the telephone when you
Mhm.
answer. Is there a smile in the voice? So organizations have to make sure that it starts with self-awareness with the leadership team. It's more than just, the board is saying we got to hit this number so that we're profitable at the bottom line. We got that. We are a for-profit organization. We're going to make that happen. However, then you have HR, right? People in culture that says, hey, we know what we need to do. Let's work on how we're going to get there. So we have to, whether it's predictive index, we have to do 101. We take our cars in every 5,000 miles to get the oil change tire
Mhm.
rotation, right? We have to do that on our leadership team. I know that I need to be intentional when it comes to organization for myself. I know that I need to leave an hour and a half early because time doesn't come in easy for me. Those are the two things that I know I have to work on to make sure that I'm showing up right and I'm representing. So it starts with the leadership team and being self aware. Some individuals prefer to recharge by themselves, they don't want to have certain conversations,
Mhm.
right? So knowing that, putting a plan together. This is uncomfortable for me, but I'm going to do my walkthrough at this time every day so that the team knows I am making myself available, right? Or someone else may say, hey, I am the warm and fuzzy. I'm not the numbers person. So I'm going to try to do a one-on-one with the CFO so that when I am making my presentations, when I'm speaking with my team, I have the numbers correct. So it starts with the person in the mirror, right? Am I being my best self? Am I on brand with our mission and vision and purpose for the year? And from that leader, acknowledging, okay, I suck with follow through, or I'm not the best when it comes to remembering names. What can I do? Just being self aware, calling a spade, knowing where you're strong, and working on the areas that you need to work on so that when it comes to HR partnering with the leaders to curate and create the spaces, we are showing up, we know the plan, we know, what's in our back pocket, the ace, and playing to our cards, our strengths, and we have a plan to support our weaknesses. Again, shout out to predictive indexes where it shows you XY axis, where are the blind spots? Who the next person that we need to hire for this particular position, they need to be a lower right brainer because we have everybody else so that we don't have this blind spot. What are we missing? So having diversity, right? And meeting overcoming inequities not only with race and gender and pay, but looking at the newer diversions, right? Looking at all that we bring. Our fingerprints are different, our faces are different, our races are different, but the way that we think and process and work, that's
Yes.
also different.
Yep. And that's some of those profiling tools. Big fan of predictive index. We use it.
Mhm.
It really helps you understand how
Yes.
someone thinks because having
Yes.
a team of like-minded individuals is probably the biggest killer to creativity
Yes.
and
Yes.
innovation. You just hit on a word and I wrote it down and you and I have this mind meltish is
Mhm.
blind spots. As you're talking through
Yes.
self-awareness,
Mhm.
and where so many leaders, especially owner-led organizations,
Mhm.
we're not the best at coaching, counseling,
Yes.
performance
Yes.
reviews,
Yes.
evaluation.
Yes.
So in that self-evaluation process, being able to ask someone, we do it
Mhm.
a lot in CEO peer groups, is
Mhm.
what is your blind spot? And not your blind
Mhm.
spot to the numbers or the business or the customer.
Yes,
What's your
to
blind
you.
spot
Mhm.
to our
Mhm.
team, to our culture?
Correct. Correct.
Recognizing it ourselves and then laying out a plan, maybe even
Yes.
having an accountability partner.
Yes.
Because when you
Mhm.
look at each person, even if it's a 5-person, leadership circle or leadership team,
Mhm.
5 people, that's 1 plus 1 plus 1. That five's going
Yeah.
to be 15 or 20
Absolutely.
in the
Absolutely.
impact it can have to the organization. And just that,
Absolutely.
I always love going into the year with, you said intentions. What is
Yes.
the intention
Mhm.
of where I want to end up? What's
Mhm.
the intent of this, and how do I stay true to that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think you hit it on the head when you said, people like to do business with who they like.
Hmm.
And sometimes people like to hire who they like and know.
Hmm.
And not always when it comes to the competency and the skill level. So it's critical that we have a diverse team, that we're not all thinking alike, because groupthink is the beginning of toxicity,
Oh,
right?
amen.
We do not
Yep.
want to go down that road. And God forbid if there's a narcissist in the suite, it's just really bad from there. So just making sure, I'm glad that you're familiar with and you use the predictive index and understand, hey, we got to know the blind spots. I have to know how I'm thinking, how I'm wired, and then using that, whether it's mentorship programs, I'm huge on that,
Yep.
pairing people up, because you get so much more with two than you do with one. That accountability, iron sharpens iron, right? And so if I'm saying, hey, Miss Lawler, I know you need to work on that. Can you make sure that I am 15 minutes early for my interview? She's like, Tish, I got you. So just making sure, that's how we make progress, and having those milestones. So in the beginning, creating the goals for the year so that we can measure performance in comparison to those goals. So it's not just I'm here collecting a salary, I'm having a great time. No, we're here and you are getting compensated, but what are you doing for the organization as well? Not only the frontline and middle level, but everyone within the organization is being evaluated, knowing what they bring, knowing what they need to work on,
Hmm.
establishing goals in all areas, continuing the strengths, soaring high where they need to beef up and where they struggle, they're not their strengths, and making sure that at the end of the year we can say, well done, I moved the needle on that. Having matrix that are smart, that's measurable, right? Looking at the benchmarks and comparing yourselves with industry guidelines.
It's interesting that in setting up that two-way communication that we talked about and laying
Mm-hmm,
out those goals, there's this follow-up question that we're
mm-hmm,
talking about a lot lately is here's the goal we've agreed on, here's the
mm-hmm,
expectation for you.
mm-hmm,
What support do you need
mm-hmm.
in order to, because that's the you feel supported. Do you have
Yes.
the development, the skills, the tools, the
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
resources in
mm-hmm.
order to reach that goal? And it
Yes.
really starts to, we're seeing, working with employees on that, we're seeing quickly and early on, do they have the skills and ability to be
Mm-hmm,
able to meet expectations? Can they
mm-hmm.
outline, here's the tools, resources, here's the plan to be able to get there?
Yes.
Or is the support they need to be
Mm-hmm,
coached on, here's how we're going to help you get there? Because we just stretched above and beyond your current skill set.
mm-hmm,
And we see
mm-hmm.
that a lot in especially high growth organizations.
Yes, 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 man. A lot in high growth organizations. I remember healthcare, just trying to come up to speed. Like, hey, we've acquired X amount of locations. We're implementing a new medical record system. It's going live on this day. We have all of these records. We need to be able to. We're not changing the appointment flow. The patients coming in.
Yep.
So we need to. So I completely have seeing the push, having that timeline, having regular weekly meetings to make sure if there's something that is high, like that priority, that there's a project manager that's following through, following up. And it's easier when everybody does it together than individually, but just making sure that you have those checkpoints, those check-ins, the follow-up, follow
Mhm.
through, because that can be a disaster. If someone's coming for an appointment, there's no information right in the file because of that transition, but just making sure whether it's a CPR AAD course or an annual, or whether it's biannual or 3 years. I know Sherm, I just recertified with Sherm in October, making sure that that employee is on the right trajectory to make sure, hey, we're not just here looking pretty, we're not just here making the numbers. You're pretty, you're making the numbers, but how are you pushing yourself? Right? How are you pushing yourself to take it to the next level? Because if we continue to stay at the level, at the same level, our competitors are going to get us. Constantly professional development. And I want to shout out Mr. Naveen. Oh my gosh. He's in London, met him in Dubai, and he was super hungry about this as well. And just the importance. One particular customer of his pretty much double, tripled his income, his business, just by hiring an executive coach. So knowing that professional development is not only the courses, the learning management system, right? You can also get a lot from individual coaching. And shout out again to the school that I'm supporting. They invest in coaching for those leaders that ask for it and want to continue to take their leadership style to the next level.
And we've seen coaching in all walks of life. My
Mhm.
son's just playing soccer, and we talked about
Right.
it. I said, would you like a coach?
Uh-huh.
He got so, I said, you need, how about some private coaching? He goes, I
Yes.
need someone to tell me the right
Mm-hmm.
way to do it,
Way.
Mom.
Yeah.
Otherwise, all these hours of practice I'm doing, I'm
Mm-hmm.
practicing the wrong
Wrong
thing.
thing.
I thought,
Yes. Yes.
you know what? Why is it so clear at that age? It's just
Mm-hmm.
so absolutely
Yes.
obvious. I think everyone needs a coach, a peer
Yes.
group, a therapist. We need someone to
Yes.
talk to. You just, I love you hit on, you said it's you were talking about following the weekly meetings, the
Mm-hmm.
cadence. You and
Yes.
I have talked about consistency in policies, and
Yes.
it's one of the biggest piece of feedback I hear from employees
Mm-hmm.
is I don't know what the policy is
I
because
don't.
what was true yesterday is not true tomorrow. And what
Mm-hmm.
I thought the policy was, this individual didn't follow it,
Yes.
and that was okay. I know you are very, very big on the policy is the
Yes.
policy. Get the policy right.
Yes.
There are no exceptions.
Absolutely, absolutely. Actually, I have a meeting tomorrow to continue talking about policy. If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist.
Just amen. I love.
If it's not in writing, it doesn't exist. And if it exists, and 60% know about it, know how to follow it. Let's get it in writing. Let's take the time. Let's put it on a schedule. So we have a meeting today. We're gonna have a meeting in 2 weeks. Let's edit. Let's have that shared document. Let's make it happen. Because God forbid, should something happen and there's a change in employment and that employee says there was no policy, you let me go wrongfully, and we're asked on that policy and we're not able to produce that, it's not going to be good for the employer. So policies are so important that they are refreshed, refurbished, updated, as changes happen, that they take place, even if it's an electronic handbook, right? So that on the internet, so that the policy is updated, people know where to find it. If they have questions, they know who to contact. And so that is transparent. I really believe in transparency. That's where the transformation will happen. When you're transparent, there's no questions. This is what we're working on. This is when we're going to roll it out. If you have any questions in the meantime, this is the point of contact. We are here for you. We want to set you up for success. This is a resource that can help you to achieve that goal by making it plain and clear, right? Thank you for your objectives and your goals. We're going to evaluate at the end of year. We're lacking in this policy. We're going to make it happen. You'll have it by the end of January. Voila.
Amen. And that trust that it builds in that you know what's
Mm.
going to happen. Everyone's following the same. Can you imagine playing sports
Mhm.
and that opponent has a different rule book than you have?
Oh my goodness. It's
Can
a
you imagine how that game?
disaster.
That's the just that policies. And I think that role of HR, because so much has shifted
Mhm, mhm.
over the past couple of years, and it seems as though we've got changes happening right and left, companies are pivoting. How do you manage that? Okay, the policy does need to
Be updated.
adjust or pivot, but we're
Yes,
not changing the rule book because that
correct.
consistency does matter.
Mhm. Correct. It's critical. And just having a great relationship with your council, making sure, hey, our committee has gotten together, we've updated this policy. Just want you to have a final set of eyes just to make sure that it is in compliant with our state. It's critical. Is critical to make sure that it's accurate, it's right, it's available, people know about it, it's coming down the pipe, it's here. Any questions, we answer them in a meeting, and we can move forward. Removing the stumbling blocks, removing the ambiguity, removing the water cooler chatter, right?
I love, and you're getting ahead of them. You're saying,
Yes.
here's what's coming down. So by the time it actually comes into place,
Yes.
most are already following that thing. They know what's coming.
Correct.
You know,
Correct.
no one likes to just wake up and be given an agenda
Bam.
for that day. And here's, by the way, what you thought you were going to do. No, we're doing something different
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Having that foresight and that trust,
Yes. Yes.
um, it absolutely does build whatever the culture is.
Yes. Yes.
They need to be able to trust.
Absolutely. That is trust communication. Communication is the breath of any relationship. You stop breathing, you're gonna die. Right? And the trust, what you say in that communication that you follow through, it builds the
Oh,
trust. We all know that trust, I like to give trust, right? So this is the bucket of water. You have my trust. But once it's knocked over and it's lost, it's gained back with test tubes. It takes so much more to gain that trust back. So just having that transparency for leadership in the C-suite, for human resources, it's going to be half your battle.
sometimes things change,
Yes.
and as leaders, there's a lot of unknowns out there.
Yes.
And I love that you talk about fearless leadership because sometimes we get so caught up in our own minds and questioning and rethinking,
Yes. Yes.
and you are just the big, the bold,
Yes.
fearless.
I was listening to another podcast and Gen Z, 1995 to 2012. Gen Z is the generation that struggles primarily, not making any hasty generalizations, but because they had more screen time with technology, they struggle more with anxiety and depression because, go negotiate who's going to use, who's going to ride the bike. They didn't have as much playtime as we had.
Mhm.
So certain regular soft skills they struggle with, and that anxiety is there. So having to take away the handcuffs from anxiety, from fear, from panic and worry. Those things are counterproductive and it's just going to cripple the team. That's why having those regular routine conversations are so important to make sure that we restore hope, instill trust. It's gonna happen. It's coming down the pipe. The policy is gonna be updated, and whatever other questions or ambiguities they may have that we can alleviate and let them know this is what it is, it's going to help particularly for that generation. So just it's a win-win for all generations, but specifically for that one.
Are you seeing that out there from a Gen Z particularly? I've talked to a number
Hmm.
of HR leaders recently,
Hmm.
especially in recruiting,
Yeah.
and they've been tracking their biggest turnover right now
Hmm.
is with the
Gen Z.
those
Yeah.
that fit within the Gen Z.
Yeah, they're very committed to cause and purpose. And so if whether it is women empowerment or those that are homeless or trying to increase pay or whatever that cause is, say Jude, they are tied to causes and purpose. And hopefully that organization has heard and know some of the things that they want to be a part of and implement some of those
Yeah.
if at all possible. But if not, they're going to jump on the bandwagon of that organization that's delivering what most interests them.
So it's interesting. So we were just talking about kind of a subset of psychological safety and that
Hmm.
anxiety and being able to give them a warm welcoming. You
Yes.
can talk here, you can
Yes.
talk, you no fear to the turnover that Gen Z are saying,
Hmm.
just
Hmm.
they don't feel like they belong to the company. There's nothing
Correct.
to tie them to that. I just had a
Correct.
guest talk about how to come up with your purpose because the purpose employees are not going to join a company where the purpose is solely to make money.
Correct.
And for most business owners, or when you bought the company, either
Hmm.
started or bought it,
Hmm.
there was a reason. So first
Yes.
ask yourself, he said, first ask yourself, why are you? Why do you want to
Hmm.
grow this company? Why did you
Yes.
originally get into
Yes.
it? What fulfills you? Find your purpose
Hmm.
as the leader
Hmm.
first,
Yes. Yes.
and then find the purpose for the organization and share it.
Yes. Again, be
That was
transparent.
incredible.
It's gonna move mountains. It's gonna move mountains when let's say, that assistant manager understands that, okay, we are going to grow by another 15 million. But not only we're going to grow by another 15 million, we're going to take 5 million of that 15 million and we're going we're going to get shoes and we're donating it to a charity in Tanzania. That's purpose. That employee's like, no, I got to make sure that these widgets, there is someone in Tanzania that's barefooted right now. I need to make sure that I do my part. It's purpose driven. The productivity just blossoms, and it's all because of the why.
And we've seen that
Hmm.
over and whether you're adding zeros to that scenario or you're taking away
Yeah,
zeros to
the
that
why.
scenario.
Mm-hmm.
I've
We're
seen that in
communicating.
companies, whether they're 2 million, 20 million, or 100 million.
Hmm.
It's the same concept, the same formula.
Yeah,
You're just adding or
yeah,
taking away zeros.
absolutely.
We've talked about a lot today. We've
Yes.
navigated because we get on this. These are the fun
Hmm.
conversations we've been having in
Yes.
the human resource space because living, breathing humans,
Yes.
we're not
Yes.
not widgets.
Yes.
Uh, there's this constant evolution.
Mhm.
As a leader in an organization, I'm
Mhm.
listening, going, No wonder I feel overwhelmed. I've got to have
Mhm.
a purpose. I've got to be able to talk to them. I've got to do all these
Yes.
things.
Mhm,
What's a good foundation and an
mhm,
underpinning or a good starting point? What advice would you give leadership right now
mhm,
from a people first
mhm.
perspective?
I know that a healthy individual cannot help but to overflow. That leader need to make sure that their cup is full in all areas. I mean, life happens. No one is perfect. But by all means, my personal life, I have that stabilized when it comes to my well-being, right? That I have an outlet, whether it's kickboxing or martial arts or tennis. I have a way to get the frustrations out and keep myself fit. Shout out to Chris Hart. I am listening to books. I am reading books. I am increasing my mental thoughts. I am making sure that I remember my why and why I go in every day. And on a scale of 1 to 100%, I'm a good 85%. I'm feeling good. My cup is full. So when the total well-being is good, I can serve. I can handle whatever the opportunity is that comes my way. I can make sure that I'm planning ahead of time and I'm putting a
Mhm.
calendar together for my team and my department. I am making sure that I have the cadences of the one-on-ones with my CEO to make sure that I continue to stay online with all the coordinates I put in the GPS system so that we can get to our final destination. It begins with self-awareness. It begins with making sure that the total well-being of the leader is a good, solid B. Because when it is, then that healthy leader can pour in to their other leaders. And I was interested at the conference, we were having conversations about toxicity. And we found that whether it's from birth to 7, that's the time frame of shaping the formative character. And for whatever trauma happens, right? You get out the nest, you go to college or whatever path you take. I know I did my work 2009 and doing my therapy and learning and discovering who do I want to be. This is what I was given. Who do I want to be? Making sure that we do the necessary work so that we can evolve and become the person, become the individuals that we want to be, so that we can be and fulfill our purpose not only to the workplace, but to the world. When we're healthy, when we're happy, when we're whole, then the atmosphere, the associations, our teams are healthier, they're happier, they're wholer because we're infecting that, we're leading that. But when there is a wound that hasn't been addressed, then that's when you see that bleeding onto the team. So if I can say any words of wisdom to a leader, self-awareness, do the inventory checks. Be honest with yourself. Don't lie to yourself because your team, they see the truth, and be open to get feedback from the team. What do you love about my leadership? What would you like to see me do better? Right? Having those open, candid pulse conversations so that you can take it all in stride. I want to work on this again, organization and time. That's stuff that I have to carve out time to work on so that I can show up at my best. So once you are being able to have that realistic self-evaluation, look at the blind spots, ask somebody about the blind spots, making sure that you come up with your plan for the year, that you're working the plan. You have your own accountability partner. It could be somebody outside the workplace that can speak the truth to you because who has your ear has your life. So just making sure that you're doing all the things to be your absolute best self.
And there's that absolute potential fears. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to my employees. I don't want my employer. I'm already, because when you're not in the best place, you feel
Yes.
like you're on ice at work a
Mm-hmm.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
You
Mm-hmm.
said personally. Normally, we're not showing up as two different people at work and our personal lives.
Yes.
Is build a little village, build an advisory
Yes.
board,
Yes.
get a couple
Couple
people in your
people in your
personal life who
I
are
have my
able.
peanut gallery. Yes.
There, absolutely.
Yes.
And normally when they're sharing, here's, I call it 3 by 3, three things to
Yeah.
improve, three things that you're
Yes.
doing great.
Hmm.
Those strengths and what you're doing great, you can
Hmm.
leverage those to the
Absolutely.
other and just baby steps. You talked about
That's it. Ooh,
intentionality.
yes.
What is the one thing that I am intentionally going to
Yes.
put all my efforts, my time, my brain test?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
sometimes we're seeing it with leaders a lot. It's making a doctor appointment for that chronic pain that you have. Just,
Yes.
do you know what I'm like when I'm in chronic pain? It is
Woo!
not pretty.
Not happy
No one
camper.
is no one is at their best when they're in pain.
No. Yes.
Sometimes it's just saying, I'm taking the morning and I'm
Yes.
going to go see
Hmm.
a doctor.
Or someone who's hangry. Are you taking the time to have a lunch
Yep.
break? You're hungry. Your body needs fuel. You can't go from New York City to LA with no gas. Take a time and eat. Everybody deserves a break.
That's the thing in our household is
Mhm.
someone's hangry. Where's that diva level? You can see it in my eyes right now.
Yes.
And we each have those blind spots as we talked
Yes.
about. And when we can show up, we know where our blind spots are.
Hmm.
We get
Hmm.
our village outside.
Yeah.
We're able to show up as a different person.
Hmm.
It's infectious.
It
You
is.
alone, the way you show up in every situation is, you are absolutely infectious. I think I've made more movements and my hands are up there and I've got been
Come.
just in this conversation. So being able to show up that way, and I
Hmm.
would strongly encourage, you're one of those forward-looking HR leaders. And I think
Thank
this is
you.
where human resources is evolving to, is people
Yes.
resources, and aligning what the business needs, what the people need, and
That's
those two
right.
don't need to be in conflict. We can
Correct.
help align those. And I
Yes.
love that you and other thought leaders out there are doing that and paving
Yes.
the way and saying, here's how we can be consistent with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for just all the love and kind words that you've given to me. I just know that I am doing no one a disservice when I am not true. I have to be true to me. To some, I'm a little too flashy, but that's what I like. I can only be myself, and that's where I win, is when I am my authentic self. That's where we all win, right? So just making sure that we take the time to love and pour from our saucer, making sure that we're filled, we're solid. That's our bulletproof. It keeps us at peace. It removes the anxiety and the stress and the worries when we're happy, whole, right? That's when we
Oh,
can serve and be everything to all those that we've been called to take care of.
thank you for sharing it with us today,
Of
Tish. I always
course.
enjoy our conversations and I look
Indeed.
forward to the next one and all of the amazing fabulousness that you bring to you, your clients, and those
Thank
around
you.
you.
Thank
Thank you
you.
for joining me today.
Until next time, keep shining.
Till next time.
Bye bye.